No matter how gifted someone is, it'll be very difficult for them to walk in those gifts if they are depressed. We are all on a spectrum. And so when someone says mental health, it's just the state of mental well-being. And then as opposed when we talk about mental disorders, then those are now conditions which affect how we think, our mood, and our behavior. So there are things like a psychotherapy, which is talk therapy, but we'll be able to go into the different types later on. And there's also medication that is given.
Hello, and welcome to Mind and Wealth podcast. This is an exciting podcast that deals with everything pertaining to the mind, and also we delve a bit on wealth creation, wealth management, and making money. And my name is Chadley with my good man Augustine. How are you doing this day?
My voice is better today.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to just be back and speak. You know the flu that has been going around. So I've been struggling with it, and I'm happy that I'm back. And we have a doctor today, so I can complain to him.
He's got all the remedies for you. All right, so on Mind and Both today we're featuring Dr. Chanda, a professional counselor and the founder of Cornerstone Mental Wellness Center. And Dr. Chanda will be taking us through a couple of issues pertaining to wellness and also mental issues. And I think I'll be a better person after this conversation, because sometimes you don't understand that actually you're going through so much mental stress and things that you don't even actually expect to have actually crept in. It's only when a doctor like Dr. Steve brings them out and you realize, okay, I've got issues here.
Yes, I'm ready to fire questions.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Right. Dr. Stephen Chanda, you're welcome to Wealth and Mind and Wealth podcast, and it's good to have you here.
Thank you very much, and I'm really glad to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Maybe just a brief before we even talk about what's baining. Maybe just a bit about Cornerstone Mental Wellness Center. Just a bit about what you founded.
Okay, thank you very much. So at Cornerstone Mental Health Center, we offer therapy services. So we offer individual, couple, family counseling sessions, as well as consultancy and training. So these services are offered both in person as well as virtually. In addition to this, we also have the community outreach department, which is where we do community outreach programs, mental health education, and free counseling services. Currently, we've been doing so in a number of learning institutions, secondary and tertiary, as well as the general communities. Thank you.
All right, great stuff. Wow.
So that sounds so big, like such a big achievement. How did you start? Like, did you study specifically something to do with mental health, or was it something that came along the line?
I did my first degree. It was Bachelor of Science in Human Biology from the University of Zambia, and then went on to do the Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery. And then it was at that point when I was looking at the certain statistics which were actually showing that mental health is going to be the next pandemic. And so looking at that, I thought, okay, let me just try to look at the Zambian statistics. And I then came to realize that for a population of about 22 million people, we've got less than 20 psychiatrists and only one public psychiatrist hospital. And then I felt, okay, there is definitely a need for manpower. And then with the coming of private institutions, that helped to a certain degree, but not everyone was able to afford those. And so the thing that we are looking at is ensuring that we're able to offer quality and accessible services to the communities. So I think it came from both just learning about the conditions, but more so looking at what was going on in our communities. And I think that was the birthplace of Cornerstone Mental Health Center.
Wow, that sounds awesome. That's really, really awesome. I think it's important when we are doing planning our careers to just do research and find out, statistics. Because when I started, when I decided to do graphic design, there was no school of graphic design in Zambia, and at the time I looked everywhere, because my dad was like, oh, you can go to UNZA. I was like, but there's no school of graphic design over there. And that actually told me that that's a very good space for me to be in, so that I can actually be one of the few that are going to be, growing the industry in that space. Yeah. So it's really interesting to hear that.
Yeah. And the passion, Doc, that you have, that you just sort of align towards issues of mental health and wellness. I just get amazed, and I think as we've been conversing in the past, I've always thought mental health was a disease.
I know, people actually think that. That's actually,
Just break it down for us. Is the disease, is the condition, or is this something that just affects us in a way?
What really mental health is and how the World Health Organization defines it is mental health is the state of mental well-being in which an individual is able to realize his or her abilities, is able to cope with normal stresses of life, is able to be productive, and then is also able to positively contribute to his or her community. So those are 4 parameters that are used for mental health. Now, from that definition, I've not talked about any illness. So what that entails is that we are all on a spectrum. And so when someone says mental health, it's just the state of mental well-being. And then as opposed when we talk about mental disorders, then those are now conditions which affect how we think, our mood, and our behavior. So what that entails is when someone has got a mental disorder, then means that it will affect their mood. For instance, as we will talk about
in a should be getting notes. I need to get a book and start writing because I'm in school right now. This is amazing.
So as we will talk about in a moment, so as I was talking about the spectrum, so you can think of it as a scale from, let's say, 1 to 10. So we can have 1 to be where there are depressive symptoms, so symptoms of depression, where someone is struggling to do activities, they are not enjoying activities. Then we've got 10, where there's what we call mania, the manic phase, where you can picture it as someone just being so excited and they're not thinking things through. So those are the 2 extremes. Then most people will be somewhere around 5, which is half. But then the key thing is that it's a spectrum, and we are all on a spectrum.
Wow. That's I was about to say that's crazy.
You know what, for me, I'm actually just trying to fit myself in the spectrum.
that's what I was thinking. Wow.
Interesting. You're prompting me to sort of, look at the way mental health has been neglected in terms of it being talked about more often. In the workplace, at home, in churches, not very much engagement in that particular topic. I don't know, why is it important for us to just talk about mental health?
Okay, so as from the definition that I gave from the World Health Organization, would realize that mental health affects one's ability to realize their abilities. And so when it comes to the context of the church, God wants us to know our gifts and be able to use them. So that's why it's important to talk about them. Now, no matter how gifted someone is, it will be very difficult for them to walk in those gifts if they are depressed. And then also if maybe they've got a background of trauma, let's say childhood trauma, and their self-confidence is not really good, they will not be able to walk in that gift or to use that gift. And so that's very, very important, because then when people get to talk about it, they'll then get to realize that when someone is struggling mentally, that does not make them a weak person. For instance, no one is ever told to be weak when they get malaria, regardless of how many weights they lift by the gym. We say, oh no, the bodybuilder got malaria. And no one is going to talk about, but why is it that when someone, a man who doesn't even go to the gym gets depressed, it becomes a big issue. And so, but then when these things are talked about, and people get to understand the spectrum that we are on and different things that can affect us, it helps to reduce stigma. And then more so, it also helps the families know, and I'm in a better position to help this particular individual. And although we'll be able to talk about it later on, but I would like to talk about, for instance, addiction and then malaria just for a short moment. So you realize that nobody ever plans to get addicted to anything. Everyone goes to something as a safe space, as a coping mechanism. And so then what happens as they are taking that substance, I'll use just a simple example. So we've got the neurotransmitters in our brain which govern our pleasure, like how happy we feel when we're doing something. So let's say under normal circumstances, I'll just use numbers just for ease of explanation. So if 100 is the normal, so meaning if I'm doing something that I enjoy, when those neurotransmitters are at 100, I'll be happy, I'll enjoy that activity. But as I begin to get some, it could be a substance that I get addicted, it could be internet, games, those levels are going to get used because of the rush, the excitement that I'm going to be feeling. They are going to get used. So for me to feel pleasure, they'll have to go up to like 500. So what that entails is that no matter what happens, so long as my levels are not at 500, I'll not feel happy. And so that's where now addiction sets in. So that's why they could have so much food, there could be a lot of things, but if there is no that particular substance that someone is addicted to, nothing will give them pleasure. And so that is the thing. Now, so for instance, now when this is talked about and their families understand, they will realize that when someone is struggling, let's say to quit alcohol, it's not that they are not serious about it. No, it's because actually addiction by definition is when you realize that you are having difficulties to stop something. So if families understand this, it entails that they will not say, okay, this person, yes, someone says, I want to stop alcohol, and the following morning you find them by a pub. But if they don't understand this, it will be very, very difficult to continue supporting that particular person. And also the same goes with regards to the church, where you preach to someone, stop taking this, and then the following morning you find them in a pub again. If you don't know this as a clergyman, as a clergywoman, you could stop talking to that person. And the other point that I would like to talk about is the importance of talking about mental health is when employers and employees alike know and understand what mental health is and what mental disorders are. If someone has got malaria and the other one has been diagnosed with depression, you would realize that the one that has got malaria will be at liberty to tell their family members, will be at liberty to tell their friends about the malaria diagnosis, and even to tell their employers to say, I'm not going to come for work on Monday because exactly, and they'll be able to get their sick note. Why? And it's because people understand what malaria is. It's because people understand what malaria is, and the thing is that it's been talked about. It's been talked about. So people understand what malaria is, and because they understand, no one is going to blame me for being bitten by a mosquito. Okay, nobody's going to blame me for being bitten by a mosquito. But then why is it that if someone is diagnosed with a major depressive disorder, it will be very difficult to tell their family members and friends? It will be very difficult to tell their employers because they're like, my boss is going to fire me when he finds out that I'm depressed. So that alone shows that now these are both medical conditions. But why is it that they are treated different? It's because people do not know about them. And so it's very important that that mental health is talked about, because then when people understand this, it will be first of all, people will understand others when they reach out. And secondly, it will reduce on stigma. And third, it will also help people to support those having mental health challenges.
When somebody says, I've got a mental health challenge or I'm depressed, the first thing that let's say your boss would think about is, how do I deal with this now? I'm not a psychiatrist. What am I supposed to do? This probably is going to take long to solve. I have to pay for this person to see the doctor, and I don't even know if they'll be able to be helped, right? So when I think there's a bit of experience to it that affects it. Yeah, don't you think that mental health and people perceive mental health as a problem that has very little solutions to it, compared to the other, let's say malaria, which has tablets that somebody can take, and after 5 days they're fine. Do you think that that's where one of the challenges could come from in terms of perception?
Okay, yeah, that's a very good point. And again, it comes back to the perception. So that's just the perception that they have, but that's not the truth. So with regards to, and we talk about some of the ways in which some of these mental disorders can be managed. So there are things like a psychotherapy, which is talk therapy, but we'll be able to go into the different types later on. And there's also medication that is given. And that is why you'd realize that because the same way someone is able to take Coartem, let's say for maybe a week or so, and they'll be fine for malaria. But then I also want to talk about there are certain conditions, for instance, like hypertension, BP, high blood pressure. Someone takes medication lifelong. Why don't we have a problem with that? Okay, someone can have a condition like asthma. They'll always have an inhaler on them. Why don't we have a problem with that?
My question is then, wait.
Exactly.
So if somebody's taking medication for their mind,
Yes.
for their brain,
Yes.
and it's consistent, doesn't that have a side effect that would affect them long term?
Okay, sure. Yeah. So with regards to that question, pretty much all the medication have got side effects, but then for them to be for them to be brought on the market, it means the benefits and risks have been weighed. So when it comes to medication that we use with regards to mental disorders, so there is usually, we first start with psychotherapy, which is just the talk therapy. And usually for most people, so long as they're having regular therapy sessions, they don't even have to take the medication. And then there are others where they'll start taking the medication together with the therapy, and as time goes on, the medication will have to be tapered down. Eventually they will stop taking the medication, but the therapy will continue. And then there are certain cases where the therapy and the medication will have to continue for a long time. But for most times, you realize that for those where that is the case, it could be maybe there are still stressors that they are experiencing. So maybe they'll make progress, and then maybe something traumatic happens, again it sets them a little bit backwards. So with regards to the risk, and I definitely understand your concern, because someone just having hypertension could think, okay, at least their mind is okay, at least that's what people would think. Yeah. But then when you think, this person is depressed and they are the receptionist, what if they are not smiling for the clients? Yeah, so like there are all those concerns. And that is why and I think it would be very important to talk about this. That is why employment wellness programs are very, very important. That's why they are very, very important. I think I've actually seen quite a number of organizations that have actually brought these programs in their workplaces, where employees have got a safe space to talk about these things. Because you realize that for a person to reach a point where they break down mentally, it will be something that has been going on and on. But most people wouldn't want to come out and say, oh, this is what I'm experiencing. And we'll talk about the reasons why probably later on. But then someone is not able to reach out simply because they feel the moment I reach out, I'll lose my job. So having these employment wellness programs will be very important to ensure that even if people are not feeling too well mentally, at least they don't break down, because there's a system that's able to take care of them, help them. Because like you mentioned, maybe the manager wants to help but doesn't know how. So just having these regular checkups can be very important.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow. I think what you brought out was very profound in terms of people not opening up, I don't know, what role should we play, even as families, when we begin to notice that family members are exhibiting some mental mental health disorders. I don't know how the approach really could be to help someone just open up to get assistance.
Okay.
Good one. Hey.
Okay, yeah, indeed, that's a very good one. So the first thing is also has to start. In short, the process has to start even before you actually have a family member affected by the problem, and this is the reason why. So if I'm in a family where people don't take mental health seriously, the time when I'll be affected by it, I'll really have a lot of question marks about reaching out. Let's say they always say people who are having mental health challenges, they are weak and all that. The time when I, a family member who have that challenge, it will be very difficult for me to open up. So the first thing that's important is that even before we've got a family member that gets affected by mental health, it's very important that as families we are careful with regards to how we talk about mental health and just how we just approach it. With that said and done, then once we notice that okay, this is what someone is going through and all this and all that, what we can do is be able to create an environment of trust. Be able to create an environment of trust. The reason why it's very important to create an environment of trust, because whether someone is an introvert or not, at some point they may feel the need to open up. Now, if maybe let's say the last 2 weeks they heard the family gossiping about someone, then they'll say, okay, so when I open up to these people, I'm going to be the next story afterwards. So just ensuring that families create a safe space, a place where someone can open up and just feel free. Because the danger that is in where someone opens up and the confidentiality is breached is that most people will close up forever. And those are the cases where we just see someone just post their WhatsApp status at 24 and you find them dead in the morning. Simply because they tried reaching out and the response that they got just made them think, oh my goodness, I wish I never reached out. And so that is the danger there. Then after that environment has been created of trust and that is done, the thing there now is now to support that particular person. So this could be first is to ensure that whatever that is done, you don't make them feel like a burden. Because mental health challenges in its own right, someone may feel already as though they are burdensome to people. And so if then they hear someone complaining about, no, we are always taking care of X, Y, then they'll just feel, oh, so I'm a burden, and you can push them towards suicidal ideations. After that, the other thing that you'd want to do is include them in family activities. This is where you could just have family playtime, include them. This is where you'd want to check on their diet. Are they eating? Because our diet is really, they are quite intertwined with mental health to some extent. And that is why you find that if someone has not been eating maybe like nutritious food, like there's just a certain way that we feel. Like we just feel so lethargic, we don't feel energetic. And so now you can imagine someone who's already going through a tough time. It just reduces their ability to withstand stress. So I want to ensure that, of course, if they're not able to cook and maybe they're staying alone, this is where as a family you can say, you know what, let this person go and stay with that person, or vice versa, the person, that particular individual having challenges with mental health can come at the family house, just to ensure that at least they wake up in the morning, you encourage them to go and bath. So simple things like that can actually help them, as opposed to someone just lying in bed the whole day, because that then increases suicidal ideations. But then if maybe the family is there, someone cracks a joke, and all those things can be very, very helpful. The other thing that's important is also exercises, like where you just take them for a walk. That helps with regards to depression and stress.
It's mind blowing.
So then once that is done, you realize that the person will actually tend to feel better. And then now it doesn't end there. You want now to encourage them now to speak to a mental health professional. And now, depending on the situation and how motivated that particular individual is, the family can actually suggest to go with that particular person to make an appointment, and also just reminding them on their appointment. So all these things can be very, very important. Then there are certain matters which can be very difficult to handle as a family. Let's say maybe this is a child that has been maybe sexually abused by a relative, and so so that person is having a mental health challenge because they've been assaulted, but it also affects the entire family. That's where now family counseling comes in. How are you going to handle this issue as a family? So there are all those aspects that will come in, and that can be able to help both the individual, and depending on the situation, the family as well can be helped, because the family unit has got a very major role in determining really the outcome of someone who's having challenges, because they may come to see a therapist, but they'll probably be there for like an hour or so, but most of the time is spent with the family.
Wow. Wow. I don't even know where to go. But
wow.
yes.
Dr. Steve, I mean, you're bringing out so much insights. And I think there's one aspect that you've just talked about, reaching out to experts. In the past, probably even before a number of wellness centers like yours came up, I mean, we only knew of Chainama, and we've always thought about Chainama to be a place. No, Chainama mental health
like
facility.
A prison
like it's a place where only people that probably have got serious mental issues. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I don't know how we need to sort of, I think, start encouraging people to quickly even just find a wellness center and just go and get that help quickly. I don't know how we need to turn around this mindset of thinking.
You know what I think, right?
Yeah.
So for me, personally, my biggest fear is that it's an expensive experiment. Like the consultancy, the process, the meetings, every time you have to go, you have to pay. And I feel like, hey, can I afford to go? I mean, I should be able to afford, because this is my mind. We're talking about my mind.
Exactly.
The most precious organ of my body. I should be able to afford that. I shouldn't even question it. But there's just that fear that I'm going to pay 1,500 for a session, and I need so many sessions. How does that actually work? Maybe you can also talk about the price and
even just the role of a psychiatrist.
Yes.
I mean, what do they do? Are they access just like a doctor? Probably give you that sort of diagnosis the way a doctor will probably engage you. Maybe something around pricing and also accessing such a professional.
Okay, so I'll start with the discussion on the pricing. So the pricing is really a setback for most people, and that's why with regards to Cornerstone Mental Health Center, I think we try to work around a certain business model where we're able to do a number of activities, but in such a way that even those paid for services, so currently we are probably the cheapest in Zambia, because for most of our services they're like half what others offer. But again, I must admit that not everyone can manage even those low rates, and so that was why we understood that it would be very prudent to form the community outreach department. So now this is the department which offers free mental health education, as well as counseling services. So currently we've managed to form a number of mental wellness groups in a lot of institutions within Zambia, and also a lot of community outreach programs. So this is just to complement what the government is doing, as well as what the other centers are doing. But then we understand that even if, like I said, would be like one of the cheapest in Zambia, not everyone could manage, because someone is looking at that amount for a session, they are looking at a bag of meal there. So then they will pay for that session, but then get depressed because there is no meal at home. So then it then creates a very difficult situation. So that is why we also tend to work with certain international organizations, like we work with them, and we're able to just facilitate some of the free sessions. But I must admit that it will be very important also to just have at least more public specialized hospitals, to ensure that more people can be able to have access to these services. Because I think the reason why most people tend to go to the private is with regards to the scheduling of appointments. You find that for a public institution, you can only maybe visit a psychiatrist maybe like once a month, because there are a lot of people there. But for the private, you can even have maybe like 2 sessions a week. So that's why most people tend to go for to the private.
I feel like if you're working in a public mental health hospital, you also need a psychiatrist, because so many people to attend to in a day, then you have to carry all that weight. You're just giving to them, and they're giving back, whatever it is they're going through. Is there a procedure that is arranged for people like that to also actually go into a certain program?
Okay. Yeah, so that's a very good point. And because I think there have been quite a number of incidences, at least not here in Zambia, but abroad, where I think there was one prominent man that was prominent in the suicide prevention, and he was very vocal, helped so many people to avoid suicide and not die by suicide. But then the unfortunate thing is that he ended up dying by suicide. So the point that you've raised is very important, and that is why we should advise that even therapists themselves should be able to see a therapist if they need them, if they feel they need. But more so, if as a therapist you feel overwhelmed, it's very important to maybe put some breaks on the sessions, just to put all those things together, because it's very possible for a therapist to get traumatized by what they're hearing. So it's something that's very, very important, especially in the government setup, but also in the private setups, where you're just able to be honest with yourself and say, okay, I think I'm getting overwhelmed here, and maybe I shouldn't, I think maybe I should be able to have my time off, or maybe I should be able to only deal with particular cases, because maybe this is something that is triggering. For instance, could be maybe a therapist that was maybe sexually assaulted at some point. So maybe attending to sexual assault clients can be triggering for them. And that which brings me now to the question that was asked by Mr. Kalungia. So when it comes to what to the procedure and how someone can go and talk to a psychiatrist. So a psychiatrist is a specialist. So like all specialists, you don't directly go to them, unless it's maybe like an emergency where maybe you just. But even so, like for UTH, you'd first have to go through the outpatient department and at least have a chat with the general physician. So it's just a doctor that has got the Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery, and just to do the rapid assessment. But it's not really, but just for them to at least know that, okay, this is maybe needs the attention of a psychiatrist, and then they'll be able to refer. So usually that's the process. So even if someone is, let's say in outside Lusaka, so long as they go to the clinic, they should be able to be attended to, and that one there should not say, okay, this condition, it's a psychiatric condition, it's a mental health condition. What do? I need to refer it to the specialist. And if the specialist there is not able to handle it, there is always room to refer it to the to someone above you so that they can be attended to. So with regards to that, someone can quickly rush just to any mental health center, government any health center, and ideally that person, the one attending to them, should be able to escalate it all the way up to the specialist.
I'm going there tomorrow.
Wow.
I'm going there tomorrow.
That's good. That's good.
I think our
decision has
issues.
been made. That's good, and it should be okay.
Doc has just made it so simple for me.
It's okay to actually not be okay.
It's actually sort of. I think it's for me. It's comforting.
Yes.
To hear Doc break it down the way he has done it, and I think I have issues.
And you know what? It's funny that it's better to start today than one day.
True.
I mean, they always say that turn your one day into day one.
Yeah. Okay. Let me check something. Let me check something here. Doc, break it down for us. The major issues that you've dealt with around mental health, disorders, challenges that people are bringing to your attention.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, and what is the source of some of these issues, so that I can just check if I'm part of.
You're on fire today. No, that's a good one. That's a good one. That's going to help me as well.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. And just to pick up on what I had mentioned not long ago, with regards to today is better than that day. I think the situation that is there is most people wait until they've mentally broken down for them to seek help. But it's always best. You don't have to be in bed for 4 days for you to go and speak with a mental health professional. At times you could just feel, okay, I think this is not how I am. And then that at least you could actually go to speak with the counselor, and then the counselor will be able to escalate it all the way. So that's something that's very, very important. And when it comes to the source of most mental health challenges, it all begins from the time when someone is young. So when someone is around maybe like the age of 5, 6 years old, whatever happens to them, to a great extent, they will recall. And by the time they reach someone like 8 years old, pretty much everything that happens, they'll be able to recall. So what that then entails is that anything that happens at that particular time, it actually has the potential to affect them. Because remember, from the definition, we said mental health is having the ability to withstand normal stresses of life. So to cope with the normal stress of life. So there are certain things in life which we can consider normal stress.
Like rent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so like rentals. Yeah, so like there are those things. But then if rentals are causing someone to commit suicide, then that's something that's quite interesting to look at. Yeah. But then the thing is, usually the childhood period is where most people tend to get wounds. And because they're a child and they don't know exactly how to bring out these emotions, some may just maybe find different safe spaces. The example that I would give, for instance, it would be, I'll touch on addictions and substance abuse, and because that's one of the common issues that we deal with. So you'd find that if someone grew up in an abusive environment, let's say the parents were always fighting, verbal abuse, physical abuse, and all this and all that, the child will grow up feeling as though, because they'll not be able to understand. And so even if the parents were to divorce, they'll think maybe I'm the one that caused it. Maybe it's because I didn't pass number 1, so my dad got upset at my mom because I've just been playing. So then they'll internalize that guilt. And what then that does, then to lead them now to have feelings of guilt and rejection. And that rejection, that's when they're now going to go through what we call the 5 stages of rejection, which is they're going to go through denial, they're going to go through anger. So this is where I just find a child that always answers anyhow. They also go through bargaining, like they understand, should I stay at home, should I leave, can I take care of myself, should I stay at home? Then they will now go into depression. So depression, that's when they just say, yeah, you know what, I think this life is not making sense. Maybe they can even try to commit suicide. So what that entails there is that now when they're at any of these stages, like anger, it can take them to self-sabotage, which can now lead them to a safe space, which could be substance abuse. So it is from there now that someone can now start taking a substance, and because they are going to that substance as a safe space, up until like they discovered, like what I mentioned earlier on, where their neurotransmitters will rise, and then that would be their normal function. That's why there are some people who say, I can't drive when I've not taken alcohol. So that's something that is important. So one of the common ones has been addictions and substance abuse, and then the other one has been the psychotic disorders. So psychotic disorders, these are disorders which affect how someone thinks and reasons. So they will present in different things. So these are people who will be hearing things. So we call those delusions. So they'll be seeing things. Oh, I'm seeing something on the wall. I'm hearing voices. Then these delusions actually are categorized. So there's the delusions of grandeur, like where someone feels they are God. And so they just say, I can end the world, for instance. Yeah, because they're having all these delusions where they feel like that. And sometimes there are delusions of erotomania, where they just think like a celebrity or someone high ranked is in love with them, but can't just tell the world.
Wow.
So they'll have all these delusions that are going to be there and to affect their reasoning. And the most common one is schizophrenia. So these are usually the ones that most people know to be mental health, mental ill patients, the schizophrenians.
Wow. So what about people who have no sympathy? Yeah, I think, do they fall in the schizophrenia area, or somebody does something and they don't feel bad?
No remorse. Yeah.
They're disconnected with, their feelings.
Okay. So with regards to that, so it would be very okay. So I'll just give a broad response. But there's what we call personality disorders. So these personality disorders are categorized. There's cluster A, B, and C. So now there are these personality disorders which we call the antisocial personality disorders. So these are individuals who don't care what they do to others. So that's just their personality disorder. They don't care. So these are individuals who they can have money to pay rentals, but they choose not to pay just to frustrate the landlord. So that's a personality disorder. Then there will also be those that have the narcissistic personality disorder.
Yes.
So these are the ones who I'm always right and no one can correct me. And everyone should always be adoring me. So that's just their personality disorder. So even if someone does something that makes the company have profit, so long as it wasn't them in the driver's seat, they won't be happy.
Yes.
Wow.
So there are all these personality disorders. So when then someone comes for the assessment, we'll be able to look at all those things. We'll look at their here, we'll have a conversation with them, and probably we'll be able to have a diagnosis. So those are the personality disorders.
So when you tell somebody, oh, you have a personality disorder, you're a narcissist, what is the most common reaction you get? Do the people accept it, or do they just say, how can you say I'm what? Because they have a disorder.
That's the most common response I hear. You think I'm...
Yeah. So actually for the narcissist, it's actually very difficult because one thing about therapy is that someone has to be willing to be helped. And so that's why with a narcissist, usually it becomes very difficult because for someone to receive the help that they need, they have to acknowledge that there's a problem. And this is something that's very difficult with a narcissist. So that is why most of them, they'll actually first go on a destructive path and then come to a realization. So maybe if, let's say, it's a marriage, people can be telling them several times, you're a narcissist, and they won't take that serious until maybe the wife leaves or the husband leaves. And maybe they're like, oh my goodness, I think now I've got a problem. So it's up, when they come to that realization, that's when now they can be able to receive the help.
That's true. That's actually very common with men. That's very common with men. Most times when they're in a relationship, let's say they're dating somebody and they've been treating this person bad, when it comes to the point where the person says, okay, finally I'm leaving, they start to beg and then flowers come and, they want to be as nice as possible so that the person doesn't leave them, and it happens several times. Women will give a man a chance like several times. And then they get to the ultimate day where the person is tired of this.
Enough is enough.
Enough is enough. So they decide to leave. And now this person starts looking into themselves when it's already too late.
Exactly.
Yeah, they've lost out and they're starting to look into themselves when it's late. That's
Wow, it's just getting more, interesting just to sort of get your insights, Doc, and maybe as we probably draw close to the end of our conversation, I think we need part 2 for this.
we do.
Yeah, we need part 2 because now I'm just burning inside. I've got so much to offload, and
There's the reason why we call it mind and wealth. You can't just be doing wealth.
exactly. Now, maybe just as we conclude, what best practices would you recommend that we adopt, even as people that are not yet, going through mental health issues, or pretty much, you feel like all is well? What sort of things should we ensure that we're doing on a daily basis just to keep our minds, our wellness in check?
Before you answer that,
Yes.
I do feel like we all are going through mental health issues on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Maybe we're just not on the level that others are, but we all have those challenges. I think there's just that stigma to think that these guys are on the other side and then we're on this side.
Exactly.
I don't know if I'm correct.
Yeah.
No, you're actually correct. And on the part 2, I must mention, because we've not talked about the mood disorders, we've not talked about the obsessive compulsive. So definitely next time. Yeah, and then so I think that's with regards to that, that's why it's always best to think of it as a spectrum. So someone could be, like we said, 1 to 10. So someone could be on 5, but if maybe they have a bad day at work, they can go a little bit on the depressive side. So maybe they can be at 3, like where maybe they don't feel like watching TV, they just feel like reaching home and sleeping. So at that particular time, they're at 3. Then maybe things improve and maybe they get a promotion. Now 10, it's where the mania is, like where someone does things without really thinking them through. So maybe someone goes at 7. That is where people receive money, win a lottery, and they run away from home. Because now their spectrum has moved a little bit towards the 10. So we are all on a spectrum.
Wow.
So then with regards to ways of improving our mental health. So the thing is, the key thing is practicing mindfulness. Now, mindfulness is where being in the present. Now, being in the present entails that we all have a past and we all think of the future. Now, it's very important to strike a balance and be able to spend, of course, it's important to plan for the future, but then to spend quality time also in the present. Reason being is, let's say maybe this is someone that maybe had made maybe terrible mistakes in the past, and maybe it led to the divorce and everything. So if they don't handle that part well, and maybe they forgive themselves, it can actually affect their present. So being able to make peace with one's past. Okay, yes, I hate these people. Going there to apologize. These people hurt me. Finding it to forgive them. All those things can be very, very important, because our lives are just basically a sum of our past. So if one doesn't make peace with their past, in one or the other, it will affect their present. That is why we talk about childhood trauma. If someone was hurt as a child and did handle it well, it will affect their present and probably affect their future. Now, why did I talk about the future? Planning for the future is good, but when you overthink about the future, that now goes into worry, which can now lead to anxiety disorders, which we'll probably talk about in the part 2. Wow. So now that can lead to anxiety disorders. So the key thing is just being able to strike that balance where you make peace with your past and you are in the present, you plan for the future, but don't get too much into the future about the uncertainties. Then the other thing that would be important is also exercising. I think we had discussed it earlier on, because just exercising in its own right just helps with easing stress and also just gives some clarity of mind as well. And the other thing is also eating healthy is very important, because like one person said, we are what we eat. So just being able to eat healthy, that is something that is very, very important to do. Then the other thing which is also key, it's also practicing positive self-talk. Now, this positive self-talk is very, very important with regards to having that self-confidence and just being able to have these positive affirmations about oneself. And this is where some people would say, you know what, I like journaling things that are happening to me, and they will call it the gratitude journal, so that maybe we are in August and maybe someone is having a terrible week in August, they can go back to their journal and say, oh, but at least something good happened in July. So and that's very important, because when someone is depressed, they will think they are worthless. But if maybe they wrote somewhere where someone congratulated them, they got an award, that can just help them. So those journals can be really important to take note of. And then the other thing which is very important is now being able to assess these situations and say, okay, really with regards to how I'm feeling, do I need to speak with a mental health professional? Just being able to be truthful to oneself. Of course, there are normal stresses of life like rentals, but when you begin to feel as though maybe it will be best for me not to wake up tomorrow, and sometimes it will just be like a passive thought, but I think it would be nice if I didn't wake up tomorrow. When just such thoughts begin to come in, it's very important to be truthful to oneself. As I think maybe I need to reach out to someone, and this is why you can reach out to family and friends, because we've already talked about them creating a safe space and an environment where trust is there. So then you can reach out to those. And depending, and that can just be very helpful. But then if need be, it will be very important to seek professional help. That's very important. And then the other thing that also has shown to really help is just being able to help others. There is this personal satisfaction that comes with just being able to help others. And so all those things put together can really be helpful.
Wow. What a conversation. What a conversation.
If you want a part 2 of this mental health episode, please put it in the comments. Yeah, if you have a question for Dr. Steve here, put it in the comments. We will attend to it in part 2. This has been mind-blowing. You know, it's amazing that we're actually talking about the mind. But I've got so many questions. I still have so many questions, and I have so many takeaways from this discussion. One of the things that stood out for me is creating good interaction moments for your family members. You know, spending time together, laughing and giggling, and you know that really creates an environment where people are releasing their stress in a way and feeling included. You know, that was really amazing. And the other thing that you just said right now is when you get close to the point where you feel like you're having thoughts in your head, even if it's a little bit, and it's telling you, you're thinking about how it would be if you were not alive tomorrow. You know, that's the point where you can now start realizing that, okay, this needs to be, you know, discussed or sorted out. I need attention from somebody professional. And doing an evaluation of your own mental health. I think that's really stood out for me above a lot of other things, you know. But it's amazing to see that mental health, part of actually dealing with it is the biggest issue is awareness. Yeah, more and more people need to know about mental health and learn about it. So I'm happy that I'm learning. I'm having an opportunity to learn here, and I hope that there's somebody out there that has also taken something out of it that, you know, is a lesson for them.
Yeah. Wow, Dr. Steve, thank you so much for coming, and we've learned quite a lot. I mean, your immense knowledge is admirable, and we can't wait to just have you on part 2. This has been Mind and Wealth, and we had Dr. Stephen Chanda, you know, coming on set just to give us insights around mental health and wellness. And I personally, I think from today, I'm a changed person. And I think my perception about mental health issues has just completely changed. Yeah, I don't know about you, Augustine, but I think for me personally, I'm changed.
Me too. I've always been some sort of advocate for better health, you know, and I'm against stigmas of any way, because I feel like whenever we put that bracket to say these people are like this and these people are like that, it stops us from actually seeking help when we need it, because everybody can actually be affected in a way. Imagine calling somebody mad on the street. Oh, look at the madman, and you laugh. When you get to a point where you feel like you're getting close to that, you're not going to be able to seek help. So I loved the conversation. I enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to the next one. And I don't think part 2 even do it. I think we need part 3, 4, 5, 6.
It's a build up.
Yes.
Build up of different episodes. Yeah.
Yes.
Because mental health is quite broad. So yeah. All right. So this podcast actually is available on different social media channels: YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook as well. And so until next time, it's been Chadley and
Augustine. You can just press that red button over there, subscribe, and hit the bell so that we can be able to notify you whenever there's a new episode. Yeah.
All right. So it's bye-bye for now.
Thank you.